This class is not as busted, I want to be crystal clear about that. It is not as busted as Holy, for example, or Inferno. That is not to say that the class is not good. As a matter of fact, it's excellent. That is not to say that the class is not fun to play. It's still going to be very effective, it's still going to be very powerful, it is still something that you are going to be able to use, and something nice is that the class or build is already pre-established, so when it comes to accessibility, the main core things that we are going to have right here, you already have access to them. There's many things that you can be doing to actually start using this class as soon as possible, and you're not going to have to rely on endgame spells that are going to require for you to do a new playthrough or things like that. The class is already going to be powerful. That said, it's not meta. I just want to be crystal clear about how unbalanced the game is to some extent. If you want the most powerful thing, then you might as well go for Inferno or Holy. This is going to be efficient. This is going to carry you through the entirety of the game, and it's going to be a breeze. It is still going to be very powerful. It's just not going to be as powerful as the meta. It's just that the meta is just too powerful. That said, one thing that I do love about agility and strength builds is that they have the range options. In this case scenario, you have your bow. Your bow can deal up to 2k damage if you aim properly. If you're that kind of player that it is very good at aiming, as you can see right here, you can most definitely be dealing like 2k damage depending on resistances and what type of enemies are you fighting for that specific purpose, and 1k damage single shot, so 1k to 1.5k damage single shot, so that's actually quite amazing. That said, let's just talk about first the class that we are going to have. Like always, I do not include these guys that much usually because it doesn't really matter what are you going to be and what are you going to be branching out into. The starting classes just depend on how are you going to min-max your character or how are you not going to min-max your character. The best possible class that you're going to have to make this thing is just going to be the Black Feather Ranger. This guy already has a very good bow. That said, the weapon that the Black Feather Ranger has is really not that good, and ideally we want to change that ASAP. It already has some kind of high agility, so that's actually quite nice. The class level is actually not that high, and then we have the advanced class, which is the Exile Stalker. This guy has a little bit more agility, and you might think that this guy is the ideal class to go for this specific build. I wouldn't say that much, because neither of the weapons that this guy has are we going to be using. He doesn't have a bow, so that's actually a bummer. So in reality, it's going to be between these guys. Also, the partisan, it's an amazing choice because this guy has like a little bit more strength, so that's going to be wasted. I think that it was instead the monstered infantry. Yes, this guy has 14 agility, so this guy is a very good choice when it comes to making this class. Anyways, we're not going to be using the weapons out of any of this class. Another good choice is always the Condemned, because we are going to be using individual weapons and things that we are going to get in-game. So there's that. Let's just talk about the stats next. So the stats, as you can see right here, I'm a little bit too over-leveled. I didn't have a specific template for my characters that I began as the class that I wanted to have in mind. That there is min-maxing, and ideally this is not how you're going to be. I'm going to guide you through what are you going to have end-game, mid-game, and early game. So remember, we have sub-caps between 40 to 50. That's when we get diminishing returns into damage, and then we have a hard cap at 75. Beyond that, there really is no point to place any more points into agility. 99, we have a hard cap where we stop receiving damage points. This is going to affect our weapon, and it's also going to affect our range weapon, so that's great. We want to have that. Endurance 20, that's just more than enough. We don't really need more than that. The weapons that we're using, they are not really that heavy. We're dual wielding weapons, And if you want to use heavier armor with this setup, you should be able to do so, because your weapons, like I said, they are not that heavy. Vitality, this is what you are able to tone down. If you're not farming as much as I did with this specific character, endgame you're going to be like level 110. This is ideally what you are going to be. So you can tone down that vitality to 40 to get you to 110. And strength is a requirement for the bow. I'm sorry, no, I'm using a different bow. I do remember that I did change that, so you do not need any strength. So that's the main stats that you are going to have. Now let's talk about early game. Early game you want to have 20 agility. 20 agility, 15 endurance, and 15 vitality. That is just going to be more than enough. Mid-game you should be around 60 to 70 character level. At that point you should have 40 points into agility, your vitality and should be like around 25 to 30, and then your endurance is going to be on 20. That's where your main character is going to be established as a main mid-game build. At that point, like always, you can decide if you're going to pop up your vitality all the way to 40. Remember that at 40 you already have the soft cap of agility, so that's just more than enough damage to deal with anything that you're going to have on mid game. And as a matter of fact, we're not going to scale our damage that much with this build. We're going to be using different means of damage. Yes, the main stat for damage is always nice. It's always going to increase your damage, but it's not going to increase it as much as if we would be using a very heavy weapon with lots of physical base damage that can take care of that extra scaling for the weapon. That said, that's when you're going to decide if you're either going to level up your agility all the way to 75, or you want to reach your vitality first to 40 to start planning your endgame. So the equipment: left hand, bringer of stillness, sword. This thing has frostbite on it, and I do not think that frostbite is as good as many of the elements that we have. Well, it actually kind of is. What this thing does is that it deals damage to the enemy and also deals posture damage. So if you're working on getting those parries with this character, this is just the ideal thing that you would have, because you're doing your parries, you're damaging the enemy, you're placing frostbite. Frostbite is going to proc extra damage, and then you can start doing those parries to get those extra little things. Remember that since we're using light weapon, the parry window is actually quite nice in here. We're not using heavy shields. It's not as good as a dagger parry window, but it's still nice. And you can... The only downside that I see about this weapon is, yes, you can get it very early in the game, but you're going to have to farm the Ringer of Stillness. Those little Reapers, Black Reapers that you see on Umbral. And you could either be very, very lucky, or you can't. I mean, at the end of the day, one of my playthroughs, I just managed to have this one sitting around with this specific character, and I think that I had like 6 or 7 of these guys sitting down there. It depends on how lucky you are and how are you going to farm those guys, so yeah, there is indeed that. As for the bow, you can basically use the very most appealing bow that you want to be using. You can be using the Black Feather Ranger, which is one that you can purchase at a vendor, so you shouldn't worry about that much. But ultimately, once you have finally established the character build, the bow of the Mutilated right here, as well as the bow of the Sin Piercer, are going to be similar in regards of damage. This guy is going to have more elemental damage, as you can see right here, but this guy is going to have more physical damage. So that is something that you need to have in mind. It's just that they are both amazing. I mean, all of them are amazing. The one thing that you're going to have to hold onto a little bit is the Radiant Arrows, which are some of the most powerful arrows that you have in the game. Ideally, you can switch these guys by the Cinder Arrows, which you can get in Lower Caldrath. They are going to be similar on power, and they don't really care about the resistances of the enemy that much, provided that you're doing your damage. It's still going to be quite similar. As for the pendants, we're going to be using Warrior's Claw, which is going to increase your physical damage. And I like to use Yorick's Ring right here to deal additional frostbite damage. It goes with the thematic, but there are several rings that I missed on this specific playthrough. This one that increases your dual handing damage, so be sure to check out on those on your specific playthrough. But this one is one that you cannot miss, and it's just ideal because it deals quite a lot of damage because how we have the setup for our character. And the Mine Owner's Ring is just a basic thing that I always like to use in my every single build. I'm using the Paladin armor just because of looks and fashion. We don't really need any specific armor right here. Now the runes, I've tried several combinations at this point to see which is the one that is going to deal that much more damage. And I initially thought that the best possible idea would be, because of the high agility that we have, I thought that the best possible one would be to increase the agility scaling. I did try that and I found out that no, in reality, if you stack up as much the Nexus sockets, runes right here, they are going to potentialize your damage that much more. On the gem right here, this one, you do want to have the one that increases your agility attribute scaling to reduce the strength attribute scaling. We're not using strength for our character, so this is ideally the one that is going to increase our damage the most. But each one of your weapons you want to have like the Nexus, so you're going to need 4 of these guys, and they increase your damage by quite a lot, and they do stack the damage. I found out that these guys work so much better than the Bellox ones does. So yeah, strangely enough, this is how you're going to get this thing. Now, to get these runes, you're also going to farm them. Unfortunately, well, the Bellox, if you know what, it's actually a matter of availability. If you do not have the Nexus right away, you can purchase Velox runes to have here with Caroline. In the meantime, while you get the socket that you're ideally going to be using at the end of the day. But if you do not want to be using those anymore, if you really want to farm for the gems, again, I think that by the time that you have the build set up, you're already going to have everything that you need, because these runes, the Nexus, they are going to come from the very same drop loot of the left hand bringer of steel and a sword, from the very same Reaper enemy. So while you are farming the Reapers, you're also going to be getting the swords, and you're also going to be getting the sockets. So it's just ideal, it's just perfect, it's the perfect combo, because you're going to get everything that you need from the for the builds from that one single specific enemy. And that is basically how the build works. You have a very powerful, high damaging, dealing with frostbite and lots of posture damage character that is going to deal quite a lot of damage. I do like the amount of damage that you can dish out with this character. Like I said, it is not meta, it is not as powerful as Holy or as Inferno, but it's still something fun. If you want to take that role of that ranger, dual wielding handler ranger with the bow in hands, and I want to stress that out, I want to be crystal clear about this. Remember to use your bow. I think that your bow is one of the most interesting and most effective tools that you have with this character, and especially because of how the gameplay loop works in this game, where you have so many ranged enemies always throwing things at you. You can be a sniper with this guy, so you can basically pinpoint the enemies that have ranged against you. You take care of all of those headshots, you kill them first, and then you kill the enemies that are on melee range. But before they reach you, you can be showering arrows at them, and once they get to you, they are already going to be weak. So it is a very fun class to play. And also when it comes to boss fights, some of the boss fights have very specific game mechanics where they get away from you. You can take advantage of that by dealing damage from a distance. So yeah, it is just a very good rounded character that I just love so much, and I can tell you that I did have quite a lot of fun playing with this character. If you like the content, like never super appreciate it, and I will tell you today that you're a gorgeous and beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. I will be seeing you goddamn gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful day, and goodbye.